June 25th, 1876, a date forever carved into history as the Battle of Little Bighorn. The clash of swords, the rumble of charging horses, and the war cries still resonate across time. But what truly unfolded on that decisive day? Let the warriors who stood on that battlefield tell their story, the fearless fighters who confronted the 7th Cavalry. Meet Two Moon, a respected Cheyenne War Chief who commanded his people in combat. Young Two Moon, a bold Cheyenne leader who fearlessly rode into battle. He Dog, a battle-hardened Sioux chief who fought beside Crazy Horse. And White Shield, a valiant Cheyenne warrior who met the enemy with unwavering courage. Their first-hand testimonies will carry you to the sun-scorched plains of Montana, where the destiny of the American West was sealed. Prepare to experience the Battle of Little Bighorn as they did, through the eyes of those who survived it. But before we start, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to help grow our community. Custer advanced along the ridge, crossing the mountains from the monument's right flank. The Cheyenne and Sioux warriors emerged from the coulee at Reno Hill's base and swept around. Custer moved up from behind the ridge, where his monument now stands, and positioned his troops along its entire length. They descended into the valley until they vanished from sight. The Cheyenne and Sioux surged up on the right, through the Little Bighorn Valley. Custer had divided his men into units along the ridge. They dismounted. The soldiers who stepped down along the ridge appeared to send their horses down the opposite slope. Those stationed near the hill, where the monument now rises and where I stand, had gray horses, all exposed in the open. The Sioux and Cheyenne flooded the valley, surging like a tide toward the gray horses where Longhair stood. I led the Cheyenne along the ridge's length, cutting off the soldiers, and shouted to my brothers, "Come, my children, be fearless." They charged behind me, howling and firing. We shattered the soldiers' line and stormed over the ridge. Another band of warriors, Sioux and others, arrived from past the ridge. When I reached them, I dismounted from my white horse and signaled my men to hold position. We reloaded our rifles and unleashed a volley into the nearest troop. So close we couldn't miss. That first barrage wiped them out entirely. We continued advancing along the ridge, firing relentlessly at the soldiers' positions. I wheeled my horse back, rallying my warriors with a cry, "Follow me!" Many of my Cheyenne brothers had already fallen, so I spurred my horse onward, shouting, "This is the last day you will ride beside your chief." I charged again toward the cluster of gray horses atop the hill. Warriors swarmed behind me, howling and shooting. The soldiers' line held firm, so I veered left, galloping down the valley with bullets whizzing past me. My men returning fire as we rode. Then I ascended the ridge to the left. There I spotted an Indian in a grand war bonnet, Black Bear, a Cheyenne, and near him a wounded soldier. I finished the soldier, leaped from my horse, and took his scalp. Riding farther along the ridge, I came upon 4 dead soldiers. One wore a red flannel shirt, the others had striped sleeves, 3 stripes each. One clutched a sword. Their uniforms were fine, so I dismounted and stripped them of weapons and clothes. When I turned around, the battlefield was chaos. Warriors and soldiers tangled together, barely distinguishable. Most of the soldiers were already dead. I rode higher to where Custer's men had made their stand. A few corpses lay scattered, and one soldier fled toward the distant hills. We chased him down and killed him. The valley choked with gun smoke. Bullets hummed like angry bees, drowning out all other sound. With every volley, Sioux, Cheyenne, and soldiers dropped, some here, some there. Amid the deafening roar of gunfire, that horror is seared into my memory. At last we saw Custer's survivors huddled on the hillside. We circled them, Sioux and Cheyenne, closing in like a noose. We charged, firing until not a single soldier remained. Then we dismounted, seized their rifles, and scalped the fallen. After the battle, we gathered by the river, cutting willow branches. Scouts scattered them where dead soldiers lay, then retrieved the sticks to tally the dead. We had to cut fresh willow branches 6 times. Each pass revealed more bodies strewn across the ridge. When the counting ended, 488 dead soldiers lay marked by our sticks. We'd begun tallying the fallen in the valley when General Terry's forces emerged in the distance, forcing us to retreat. After the battle, warriors fanned out in a wide circle across the ridges and through the valley, hunting any surviving soldiers. None were spared. The next morning, we withdrew behind Reno's former camp and regrouped at the Black Lodge River, following its course back to the Little Bighorn. We kept moving our campsite, always watching the horizon for pursuing troops. Days before facing Custer, we'd raided a soldier camp near the Tongue River, stealing their horses and driving the men into the brush. We knew retaliation was coming. At Powder River, soldiers had burned our village and destroyed our supplies. That fury still burned in us when Custer's men attacked. This time, we were ready. The prairie stretched empty behind us, dotted with fresh graves, yet we, the few who remained, stood victorious on that field. The hills bore witness, the silence broken only by the wind, the courage of 277 soldiers who fell on that bloody ground, and the last defiant stand of their leader. A flash of steel in the June sun, before he too was swallowed by the tide. This is the image history will never forget. Before 1876, my people, the Oglala, lived near the Platte River. That winter, we camped along the Tongue River. Then on March the 17th, we clashed with three-star Crook's soldiers. Though the fight centered on Little Wolf's Cheyenne camp, I led a band of Sioux warriors into the fray. Our Oglala village stood near Sundance Creek, close enough to the Little Bighorn that we could see the pine-covered bluffs of Lone Teepee in the distance. That day's fighting cost me 7 horses. By moonrise, we'd moved camp to Lodgepole Creek, sending warriors to recover what they could. Among those sheltering at Lone Teepee was a wounded Sans Arc warrior, Turning Bear's brother, his stomach torn open by Crook's bullets. We prepared to confront Crook again, but with no Crow scouts in sight, fear for our scattered villages pulled us back. His force, swollen with allied Indians, had already retreated. We counted that as victory. 3 days later, we reached the Little Bighorn. With our families hungry and buffalo to hunt, the Sioux wanted peace. No one expected more soldiers, until 7 scouts spotted Custer's dust. Here's where memories differ. Some say it was the 2nd day, others the 3rd. Those scouts, Black Bear and Dirt Kettle among them, saw the danger but didn't warn the village. Instead, they circled Custer's column and rode southeast toward the agencies. Only Fasthorn returned, galloping in just before Reno attacked. The Oglalas weren't at the river that day. Our camp lay northwest of the Hung Papa, where we'd withdrawn after Crook left. The Brules weren't there either. They joined us with over 20 lodges. Flying Chaser led them, though he wasn't a high chief. The Hung Papa and Blackfeet dominated, 600 to 700 lodges between them, plus 30 to 40 Santee under Chief Inkpaluta. 2 Arapahoes stood apart in that sea of 1,800 lodges. I saw no white men, just a Canadian half-breed in my camp who spoke flawless English and Sioux. The Hung Papa were first to confront Reno's advance, surging forward on foot while I struggled to saddle my horse. They pushed the soldiers back to a stand of timber, buying time for the rest of us to gather. From my vantage point west of Reno's skirmish line, I watched warriors massing for an assault, not just Sioux, but fighters from every band who'd managed to secure mounts. Just as we charged, the soldiers fractured into 2 groups, bolting for the river at full gallop. We cut down their Indian scouts in the chase from timber to water's edge. When Benteen's troops appeared, I broke off pursuit and returned to the Hung Papa camp, only to spot more soldiers descending the eastern bluffs. Custer's movements puzzled us. His columns snaked along the riverbank, crossing Medicine Tail Coulee before halting on a low rise, precisely where Foley would later mark it, some 600 feet from the ford. At that moment, his forces were strung out from Foley's position to Butler's, probing toward the camp's southern edge. The first clashes were sporadic. 5 soldiers fell near the cut bank opposite our village, ambushed by warriors moving upstream. Most of Custer's men remained mounted, advancing in loose formation rather than organized companies. For a tense interval, only scattered shots rang out, perhaps 15 Sioux on the far bank trading fire with soldiers. I never heard the volleys historians claim Custer fired. Then Crazy Horse struck. His charge at Keogh shattered Custer's line, sending panicked horses stampeding toward the river. The Gray Horse troop, initially cohesive, dissolved into chaos. Soldiers either dismounted to scramble up gullies or fled south toward Findlay, their ammunition belts still heavy when we overran them. Foley's doomed ride from Line H left 28 dead in that ravine. The Cheyenne fought like demons that day. their bloodlust so fierce some grew weary of scalping before reaching Custer's cluster of dead. We didn't recognize these soldiers as Custer's. Only later would we learn of Custer's death in the villages, or identify Mitch Boyer's body among the slain. By the time Terry's forces arrived, we'd already turned Custer's own ammunition against Reno's besieged troops. Their Winchesters were no match for our mixed arsenal. Our losses, 30 to 40 dead, with countless wounded who wouldn't see the next moon. Had Terry delayed but a few days, not a single soldier would have left those bluffs alive. With the soldiers defeated, our united tribes moved upriver toward the Bighorn Mountains. We stayed together until Slim Buttes, where Sitting Bull led the Hunkpapa north to Canada. I fought there when the soldiers attacked, though the only casualties were Minneconjou hunters, not chiefs. A wounded Sanzark, my kinsman, died there too. Earlier, after the Rosebud fight, our camp had shifted near Reno Creek. 7 Arapaho strangers arrived, seized as suspected scouts. Warriors stripped them of weapons and horses, while grieving women screamed for blood. Black Wolf and Last Bull argued for caution, but the mob forced them into Two Moon's lodge at gunpoint. When Two Moon finally arrived with 5 chiefs, he silenced the crowd. These men are allies, return their belongings. The Arapaho were dispersed among lodges for safety, fed, then reunited. By dawn, we'd moved camp downstream. Unaware Custer's men approached. Two Moon watched from 3 miles away as Custer's troops galloped down the eastern bluffs. The Gray Horse Company halted where the monument now stands, while others formed staggered lines facing our village. Warriors swarmed like ants up gullies, testing the soldiers' flanks. Yellow Nose led 4 charges. On his 3rd attempt, the northernmost company broke, fleeing toward the Gray Horse troop, whose volleys briefly held us back. But by the 4th charge, our momentum was unstoppable. The Gray Horse troop fought fiercely. Their rapid volleys drove us back over the ridge toward where Crow Agency would later stand. But our warriors adapted instantly. At the cry, "All dismount!" we leaped from our horses and rained fire on the retreating soldiers. Then, remounting, we charged again. Chaos erupted. The Gray Horse soldiers released their panicked mounts. Some stampeded through our lines toward the river. When we crested the hill, we saw the other 2 companies stranded near the water. They too abandoned their horses, sealing their fate. One company made a desperate stand in a shallow gulch, but we overran them. Young Two Moon arrived too late to witness their final moments. Only the bodies remained. Had these soldiers held formation, the fight might have lasted hours. Instead, their spooked horses betrayed them. Neighing in terror, the cavalry mounts jerked their riders' arms, spoiling aim. Bolting for the river, they plunged into a deep pool instead of crossing. Trapped in swirling currents, the thrashing animals became a death sentence for riders trying to escape our village's size, guaranteed overwhelming numbers. 200-plus Cheyenne lodges, 4 to 6 warriors each, 6 larger Sioux camps, with fighters from as far as the Missouri River. 40 to 1 odds at the battle's peak. This was no accident. Months before, we'd sent runners to Red Cloud and Spotted Tail's agencies. Every willing warrior answered the call. The Lakota Alliance fielded a force no single cavalry battalion could withstand. With Yankton Sioux joining the encampment, our numbers swelled to 1,700 lodges, 8,500 warriors by conservative counts. Yet Custer's fatal error wasn't just underestimating our strength, but failing to coordinate with Reno. Had they struck the village simultaneously from both ends, the chaos might have favored the cavalry. Instead, the battle unfolded as disjointed tragedies. Under cover of darkness, some of Reno's men slipped to the river, not just for water, but chasing panicked horses that had bolted to the creek. We captured those strays silently, adding their strength to our herds. At dawn, one bare-chested soldier staged a suicidal run. Splashing through bullet-whipped water with cup and canteen, drinking while diving, his body half hidden by spray, miraculously surviving the gauntlet of fire to return to Reno's lines by midday, scouts brought word of approaching reinforcements. We abandoned the siege so swiftly that Reno's men didn't realize their reprieve until they saw our dust cloud moving upriver. Fishing peacefully with Blackstone and my nephew, I first sensed trouble when the boy reported, "A warrior in full regalia rode past, hunting more than game." From the hill, the distant crackle of gunfire and fleeing figures revealed Reno's attack. Returning to camp, I found only my mother clutching my war horse. My battle shirt was already gone, claimed by Bulletproof, who'd crowned himself with a kingfisher charm. As I armed myself, the horizon erupted with soldiers. Custer's doomed approach, 7 distinct companies advancing, their gray horses gleaming, warriors already swarming like starlings toward the ridge. My decision to flank low, while others charged headlong. The last white men those soldiers ever saw were Cheyenne closing from below and Sioux pouring down from the heights. A pincer movement born not of strategy, but of righteous fury. Beside me stood only Roan Bear, Bobtail Horse, and a handful of others. Mad Wolf cautioned, "Hold! Too many soldiers. Keep firing, but wait." Then the gray horse troop dismounted near the river, their movement rippling back through Custer's ranks as every company followed suit. The moment their boots hit dirt, our bullets found them. Turning points in the fight, Big Belly's charge broke the soldiers' cohesion, his daring rush sparking chaos among their horses. Yellow Nose's legendary strike. My half-brother watched as he seized a company flag, counting coup mid-battle. The troops' panicked mounts bolted, dragging handlers through the dust. The false retreat. When warriors shouted, "The soldiers come!" Zrenya most troops fell back. But the gray horsemen stood firm where their monument now bleaches in the sun. 3 troops had already lost their horses when I flanked near the modern road. What I saw there stays in my hands like rifle heat. Bare-handed cavalrymen. Half a company fought with only revolvers, their rifles lost in the stampede. The hill of no refuge. Survivors from shattered units tried reaching the gray horse position, only to be cut down slope by slope. The sorrel escape. One rider made it out, just one. The rest died with their horses in that final circle. The gray horse troops' discipline nearly saved them, until 4 desperate companies converged on their position. Even then, marksmanship failed. Their volleys went high as our warriors pressed belly to ground. Horses became coffins. Mounts shot from under them created barriers of thrashing flesh. The math of war. 3 companies gone before the last 3 even reached the hill. That sorrel rider, he carried no flag. Just the story of how 8,500 warriors erased Longhair's name from the living. Note the visceral details, the feel of revolvers in close combat, the sound of horses screaming. This isn't history remembered, it's history lived through the eyes of those who made it. As the last soldier fell, warriors surged forward, hatchets flashing, arrows hissing, knives glinting, to ensure no wounded survived. Old Bear and Kills in the Night, both still living in 1915, gave chase to the lone rider on the sorrel horse. The Sioux fired first, a shot that whizzed past its mark. Old Bear's second bullet found its mark between the shoulders. When they reached the fallen soldier, his fine boot still held a knife in its scabbard. Near the river's edge, at the periphery of the gray horse formation, lay a buckskin-clad officer, fringed shirt stained with dust and blood, red neckerchief, now a crimson rag. That famous yellow hair matted with prairie dirt, warriors moved methodically through the carnage, stripping the dead. The buckskin-clad officer was carefully relieved of his distinctive garments. Collecting arms, every revolver, saber, and ammunition belt was claimed. Counting coup, young fighters touched weapons to the fallen to prove their bravery. And as the last echoes of battle faded across the Little Bighorn, a haunting question lingered in the trampled grass, one that still whispers through history. What truly happened in Custer's final moments? We know how he fell, but not what he saw. We know who stripped his buckskins, but not what they whispered. We know where the sorrel horse fled, but not what secrets died with its rider. This isn't just history, it's humanity's greatest unfinished story. Comment below, what mystery from this battle still keeps you awake at night? Was it the missing flag Yellow Nose stole? The unknown warrior who landed the fatal blow? Or Custer's last words, swallowed by the prairie wind? Smash that like and subscribe if you crave the untold truths. Because this is just the beginning.